a convent located in our suburb of Long Island. It was run by the Sisters of Mercy, called Our Lady, Queen of Angels. And it was an orphanage for boys, okay? And we used to drive by this often, go to my grandparents' house. It was back in the 60s, and the sisters wore those long, flowing habits, veils, they had rosary. I used to watch out the car window. They were just like so beautiful, so mysterious. I just loved it. One day when I was driving in the car, my mother's driving, the siblings and I are in the car, I happened to say, you know, maybe one day I'd like to become a nun. Yeah, well, guess what? That didn't go real well. My mother, God rest her soul, I love my mother, but she, said, well, Elizabeth, dear, we're not Catholic. That's not really a practical solution. She's like, what do you mean you want to become a nun? What's wrong with you? And I think she probably thought orange were sprouting from my head or spinning around the back seat. So I thought, okay, that's not a good suggestion. We're not going to bring that up around Mom. But when I think about that story now, I don't think it was because I had a calling to the religious life as much as I was developing an attraction for things that were Catholic. Do anything. And I think God got pretty sick and tired, to be honest with you, of being on the back burner of my life. Because in my junior year, he sent a young man into my life named Mark. And Mark would become my husband eventually. And Mark was a cradle Catholic, and he was Italian. Dear Lord, I was dating an Italian Catholic. What are my German Protestant parents going to think of this one, I was like, okay, whatever. And the thing about Mark, hi Mark, he's home with my 4 boys. The thing about Mark is that he was not overt about his faith. He didn't talk about Catholicism. I don't think I even knew he was Catholic for a really long time. But I started noticing that every Sunday night, Mark would go across, his boys' dorm was here, my girls' dorm was here, and across the way was the Newman Center. They have a little Catholic Newman Center. And every Sunday night, he went to Mass at the Newman Center. And I thought, that's pretty impressive, because his parents don't know if he's going to Mass or not. So, he's going. My attention. That's pretty cool. And one day, Mark invited me to Mass. And this was rather an eye-opening experience for me. I'd never attended Mass. The first thing I was struck by was the little tiny room that the Mass was held in. It was just this little room. And it was only about maybe 12, 18 kids, okay? Real informal setting. No organ music and good Lutheran hymns or anything like that. It was really casual. Sometimes someone might play guitar, whatever, but real casual. The priest, he had long hair and sandals. I never saw a minister in sandals before, so I'm looking at his toes like this. Anyway, so, I know, I'm going to get on the tangent about toes, but, so, the one thing that struck me, the first thing that struck me about this first Mass, is that there was a sense of community that was going on between these students. And it wasn't like that they knew each other, because this was a big campus, UB was a big campus, and I didn't even recognize, I maybe recognized 1 or 2 faces. But these kids were coming from all over the campus. But there was something between them, a community. It was almost like a club. And I would say in a sense, I didn't belong to that club at that point. But it was intriguing, and I had not experienced that kind of community in worship before. But the second and much more powerful experience for me, that very first Mass, is when that priest took that little white wafer and he held it up and he said, "This is my body." I knew. I saw him. I knew that was Jesus in the Eucharist. And, no one had to convince me of these big theological discussions of why that's the real presence. God just graced me. Here's that word, grace. He graced me enormously to suddenly embrace that fact. And I can remember thinking, so that's where you've been hiding.